I think we're going. It's counting up anyway.
Okay, it's 7:30, let's call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Consent to remove items from the consent agenda. Consideration for the approval of the consent agenda.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
We have a motion to accept the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Comments from the public? Okay.
I do want to say though that Teachers Association brought goodies today for board appreciation. I thought Teresa was going to give a speech.
Yeah, I do. I just didn't know.
Now's the time.
Okay, I will do that. Last year, I think you had this other time for me to do it. But
Yeah.
so, well, first of all, I want to introduce, so you don't want to know who this lady is that's sitting beside me. So this is my student teacher for this semester. And so her name is Deborah Houghton. And she is from, she's actually going to the University of Colorado in Pueblo. And she is coming here to do her student teaching. Her parents live in Hill City, so she's driving back and forth from Hill City. But she has chosen to come to Kansas because our students are currently on site here in Kansas. And in Colorado, most of the schools there are doing remote. So she's coming here to do her student teaching. And I welcome her. She's been great. I can already tell you it's going to work out really well. I've learned a lot from her, and I hope that she learns a lot from me. So I want to welcome her here. I just wanted you guys to know who this person was that was sitting beside me. So, and as far as the school board appreciation, first of all, the Norton Teachers Association, I'm president of the Norton Teachers Association, and on behalf of the Norton Teachers Association, we would just like to say thank you for all your time and hard work being a school board member. I'm just going to give you a little bit of information. In 1966, the people of Kansas amended our state's constitution to specifically call for local public schools that are maintained, developed, and operated by locally elected boards. So the 7 individuals on our Board of Education are responsible for setting the vision for our local education program and partners with staff and other members of the community to provide the facilities and infrastructure to achieve that vision. Their service to our school district is voluntary, and they spend hundreds of hours serving our schools. They research, they study, and they discuss issues that they can make informed decisions on countless complex challenges. Too often we forget about all the personal sacrifices that all of our school board members make. And I know this year has been a difficult, hard year with the COVID situation. So we thank you for all your countless hours and time that you have devoted. January 2020 marks the annual observance of the School Board Recognition Month, and the theme this year is School Board Members Leading Success for Every Student. So this is a time to shine a light on how local boards prepare today's students to be tomorrow's leaders. And many of you graduated from the Norton schools, and you are now serving on our local school district board. So we appreciate that, and we thank you, all the men and women who provide leadership for our public schools. So we thank you, and be sure you enjoy the refreshments that we have, and we appreciate everything you do, and we wish you could continue doing what you're doing and serving our time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, other comments from the public? Superintendent's report.
Okay, a few items for you. A couple of calendar items. A week from today, we'll have in-service day for teachers, so we will not have students. Then on Wednesday of that week, we have early release normally it's MTSS, but it'll be some form of MTSS or test results or some other things that we have staff working on. So both those next week coming up. Just to update a couple things. Our maintenance position, I have 2 or 3 candidates thus far. I have not interviewed yet because I was out last week, so I'm going to try to set up interviews this week, see when we can get someone in there, and hopefully we can get that filled. I visited with the county health last week a little bit. They contacted me, and we surveyed our staff so county health would have some idea about how many vaccines, COVID vaccines we might need to meet the needs of our staff. And they're hopeful that in the near future, they can't give us a date, they don't have any idea, that we will be able to fit into one of the batches they get, and the people that want to receive the vaccine will be able to do that. I think we had an interest of around 50 staff that wanted to do that. And that could change by the time it gets here too, so we'll see. A couple other things I don't have a lot because most of it's in the agenda today. I went back because we were asked about last month a little bit. We talked about needing to increase this spring and summer our LOB from 30% to 33%. So I did go back and look a bit because I was asked about our mill levy, and I went back and looked at the last 3 years of our overall total mill levy for the district. And in 18-19 it was 51.7, 19 and 20 school year it's 51.3, and this year it's estimated to be, it'll be 51.2. So we've managed to keep the mill levy pretty level, which is what we try to do. The best way that we're able to do that is with our bond, because that's when it went up. Obviously the last time was when the bond levy passed and we added the bond for the remodel. So that jumped it up, and this year that's about nine mills, which is the highest it's probably been at one time, partly because valuations went down a little bit, so the mill was going to go up some. 3% then is probably going to could add 1.5, 2 mills. It's hard to tell for sure, but that's a possibility. I think that's what they told me last summer when I went to Topeka. They were guessing that would be about that much. So we've been pretty steady. We've been able to maintain that. Hopefully we don't have to skyrocket anything in the near future. Just some additional budget information for you, that kind of a what-if situation, but I think as we talk, people get, we talked quite a bit about some of our problems being with increase in special ed costs and things, but one of our biggest problems, and it's most of the time really out of our hands, is our loss of student numbers. It's the loss of number of students. So if you remember a couple years ago, of course, we lost 20 students, and we thought we were going to increase students. If you look back at that, and with our current situation with special education spending, if we still had 670 FTE students like we had a couple of years ago, and we increased our LOB, that would raise $175,000. Right now, that'd raise about $125,000 with our current numbers. That's where your number of students, it hurts you in every way. Every time you turn around, it's going to hurt you to have fewer kids. So if we could do that, if we would have been able to have done that and raise that money, kept our student numbers up, we wouldn't be talking about having to reduce staff so much. There would be 1 or 2, which could be done completely with retirements or resignations. So a big concern is, as we look this year's numbers, which are obviously lower, for one main reason is mask, those are what you have to keep your eye on in the future. Are those going to come back up? Are they even going to get back up to 653, which is where we're at right now? From last year, the number will be needing to use next year. That's what we have to watch. So, And that's what we've been basing all of our concerns on. So, what ifs don't do you any good, but the loss of students has really hurt us. That's the big loss. That's when we lose student numbers. We found out the end of last week we're getting more ESSER money, which is federal money for COVID situation. We have received the original money we got for the first year, then we received Sparks money through the county, you know, and now we have ESSER funds. It's a good amount of money. It looks like right now we could receive $369,000. The downside of that, you have to spend it some way related to the list of things they'll give you on COVID. So that limits, you can't go put it in the bank. You can't go put it to salaries of everyone. So we're trying to figure out, along with about every other school in Kansas, how can we spend this money and use it, the best way to use it for our students and staff. So this money must be spent by 2023, so they do give a little more time. You remember Sparks, we had like a month, we had like 2 weeks to figure out what we were going to do. This is a couple of years' time. So that's the good thing of it. I watched a Zoom on Friday with some other superintendents. A couple ideas were bounced around. We have someone that's going to help us. Southwest Plains is going to collect information for us, and we have the head of Southwest Plains, the director, is involved with the state on information that kind of trickles down. Well, you can use it for this and you can't use it for this. So we'll collect all that. I'll be coming back to you in the future with here's what we can do, here's what we can't do with this money. That's a tremendous amount of money, but it's very narrow. It's fairly narrow in how we can use it. So we're going to have to use our imagination. We're going to have to figure out ways that can help our kids, help our staff, help our district in using these funds. So, but it's fairly new, so I don't have a lot for you yet because we knew we were probably going to get it. We didn't have any idea how much or how they were going to spend it. So that's down the road. That's all I have for that report.
Curriculum update.
May I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. At the beginning of this school year, we get all kinds of notifications from Kansas State Department of Education. And one of the notifications I got this year was for what's called the Horizons Teacher of the Year. That's why I have this. I want to read what it is rather than trying to memorize it. And this comes straight off of KSD's website. And it says, the Kansas Horizon Award Program identifies and recognizes representatives of excellent teaching in the elementary and secondary classrooms of the state. The mission of the program is to recognize exemplary first-year teachers who perform in a way that distinguishes them as outstanding. So there are only 16 secondary teachers in the state that are honored with this award. And this man was one of those teachers. It's been a long process. She had to do a lot of background work and writing essays. She had to get other people to write letters of reference for her. But when I saw that email come through, I had no doubt I needed to recommend her for this honor. Every time I walk in her room, there is some sort of active learning going on. She has relationships with her children. She is the utmost professional in going out and pursuing her master's degree. She is junior class sponsor. She is Blue Crew sponsor. Anytime I ask her to do anything, it's met not only with a yes, but an enthusiastic yes. So I was very, very proud to be able to nominate her, and not at all surprised when she was awarded as Horizon Teacher of the Year. So I wanted to bring that to your attention.
She's organized a whole award thing and tricked me to her office of Mr. Wilson, and then my family came out of a closet. I didn't know they were there. I cried a lot. There was cake and cookies, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
right here.
You can go. You can go. Okay, curriculum spotlight is social studies. What is
Social
it?
studies, and Mr. Johnson is going to present to you today.
It's Apple TV, isn't it? Can I get on?
Yeah, let me get off there.
Code. Okay, so I never know where to stand when I'm talking about. Stand either behind or in front of somebody. But what I really want to talk to you about today in social studies is every 4 years on a presidential election year, I usually love to have my senior class run a presidential election for the whole district, all the way down to the first graders. And in the more recent years, we used to do that just on our own, made up our own little ballots and everything. In the more recent years, we've used Kids Voting Kansas. And it was a program that was utilized across our state and our nation to recognize the voting and teach kids the importance of voting. But with all the uncertainty this year, and we actually went on remote learning around October, a little bit right before we were going to have to make all the plans, so we didn't do that this year. So I'm here to talk to you, show you the life and the times of maybe just my curriculum in the senior government class. So, I will be talking about elections, like you haven't heard enough about elections already, right? So this gives the kids really a real life example of what social studies is, especially the voting part of it, and how interactive it can be. I take my job seriously as a government teacher. I want to teach them to be great future leaders of our communities. And one way to do that is to know how to interact with your government, know how to peacefully assemble, know how to vote, that your vote matters and things like that. And we've had some very interesting discussions over the past 4 weeks, 5 weeks, going through this. And I'm kind of like a constitutional, strict constructionist, you might say, in that I like to look at the Constitution. And we always go back to the Constitution because many times what we're being told on certain news medias is not exactly hinting at what the Constitution says. And I'll go to that just a little bit. So first of all, if you're a senior government student, you come in and you get this Google Classroom. I just picked the 4th hour class here. This is the stream, and this is everything, kind of the highlights of what's going on. So I usually pop on a few things about what's going on in our nation, current events, and there's been no shortage of current events this year for American government. So I just threw on a few things here just this week, actually, in fact, yesterday. But here is the Constitution. So another thing is, we heard for a couple weeks, and I'm only talking about this, I want to get to the other stuff first, but we've heard it for a couple weeks that, especially from the Speaker of the House, that the 25th Amendment may be enacted. And when I heard that the one morning, while watching the TV, I almost threw my government book through the TV, because they were talking about Congress enacting the 25th Amendment. And so my wife got tired of me shouting at her saying, have they read the Constitution? So, and I have a copy of it right here. So the 25th Amendment basically says there's only 2 ways for the president to be removed, not impeached, but because of a temporary illness. It's only been transferred, that power's only been transferred 3 times in the history of our United States. And the first way that it can happen is the president can inform Congress that he is too ill to carry on. So the president can take himself out of the ballgame. I don't think that's going to happen with this president. The second way that can happen is the vice president and a majority of the cabinet can vote that the president is not in his right mind or whatever, and they can remove him from office. So we go to the Constitution and we look at things like that. This is just a part of that. So, let's see if I can get back here. What I really wanted to get to talk about, oh, another thing that we talk about in the news media, this year, I guess we could have used mail-in ballots to do all of our voting this year for our students, as we joked about today. But this has been in my government textbook for many years. Why are mailed ballots often failed ballots? Now, I don't say this to be leaning right or leaning left. I try to be in the middle and give kids both sides of the equation. But this is exactly taken directly out of their government book this year. And oftentimes, because people don't follow the rules, mail-in ballots, 1 in 80 of them are just missing a signature. So they're thrown out just right off the bat. 1 in 100 for a couple other reasons. They miss the deadline, no address, so on and so forth. So we talk about these things with our kids, but we talk about these things with our kids and the fact that to try to get them to be thinking of what their political ideology is. So let's talk about, that's just the kind of the current event stuff. So let's talk about over here. It's kind of neat. My teaching style has greatly changed over the past 5 years with the invention of Google Classroom, and I love it. I use it a lot. I mean, some of your kids took my class 4 or 5 years ago, and it's not at all the same because this is so easy for us to lead kids through different curriculum. I'll just start with some of the, and I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but this was, when we go to, this is the topic of voting. So we talk about voting. We actually watch the highlights of some of the presidential debates, the objectives that we want for each lesson, and each objective or each topic is right here. Here's one of those. One of the main things is to know that individuals and groups have led to the expansion of our electorate. Our electorate has grown throughout the years. It also involves both the psychological and the sociological factors that affect how we're going to vote, so on and so forth. I don't want to bore you with the details, but that's some of the stuff like we get into talking about. And like there's an assignment. Oh, here we go. I almost sent each one of you an email for this. So we actually have the students fill out these political party quizzes. And I chose this one because I filled out the other one. And every time I click on it, it shows you what my answers are. So even in class, I can't really show them that because I want to remain as neutral as possible when I'm leading these kids. They need to find out where their political ideology is. And I have them go and interview. And my class has changed considerably in the fact that it's not all about cramming for tests anymore. We do a lot of project-based stuff. I have them make videos and interview their parents about their political ideology, or some of their grandparents, or somebody that has lived long enough to live through many different presidential elections. So this is pretty interesting to go through and see what their answers are and how they kind of match or this area of the country, you might say. So that's just one thing. Another thing is we go directly to the source. We go directly to like the GOP website or the Democrats website, and I make them read their party platform. How do you know you're a Democrat? How do you know you're a Republican? How do you know you're a libertarian? I mean, you got to read their political platform and understand what they stand for. So down here at the bottom, each one of these, and it's very, very long. They know that they set it up so that it's really hard to understand. And the hard part is, when we went to the congressional unit, the bills that are being passed, you almost need a law degree to read them. And we watched them pass some resolutions today. House Resolution number 21 was to enact to encourage Mike Pence to enact the 25th Amendment. That went through today. And we watched it live in some of our classes. So this, what's neat about going through government class right now is that they have some real life examples. Here are some voters. I gave them extra credit if they showed up, even if they weren't eligible to vote. If they showed up and actually watched the process, then they got some extra credit. And like Sydney here, she was old enough to vote. And so was Matt. He was very excited about voting. This is kind of a unique, when I didn't know what I was taking when I took this picture. I've taught both generations. So, yeah, it makes me feel pretty old. And of course, Drew. So, I kind of love the teaching about the voting unit. This year was a little more exciting because we got to talk about how different states have different rules and different regulations. And how I listen to my wife or my kids and tell me, Dad, why in the world do they change the rules? Well, right here in my government notes, and also in my government notes, I have interactive stuff built into it. Where was it here? Can't remember if it's in this chapter or the next one. But the reason why Maine, Minnesota, and Wisconsin especially, people don't realize you have to register to vote in every single state except for North Dakota. But in Maine, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, you can register at any time, even the day of the election. And that's why Wisconsin numbers were so skewed. And see, if you don't have this knowledge, then you're doomed to repeat the failures of before. And that's one very important reason to study history and government, so we don't repeat its failures. I kind of have flipped. I don't really make all the videos, but I make some videos. But I use Hip Hughes history, and I also use many other different videos in class to show these kids all different sides of the equation. So, if you're going through American government class on an election time, we followed it all the way through and we taught them to go home and teach their parents and their friends about the election when they vote on, I think it was November 11th this year. That is not the final say. We know that the Electoral College is what elects our president, and that doesn't even get counted until obviously January 6th. One of the assignments I had them do this year was letter to self. If I can find it here. We just updated it today in class. Oh, here's another thing that's very exciting. This guy has been doing the election results since before. The reason why all of that in the middle is blue is because Dave Leap's website, he has been updating this longer than the National Federal Election Commission has existed. So he originally put the Republicans as blue and the Democrats as red. And you can go back and look at any election in the United States, all the different years, and you can go back to 2000 presidential election and how it shapes up. So my job when we study about the election results or the election and voting is to try to get them to know that their constitutional right of voting is very, very important. Which then leads into all of the problems that we're seeing right now with chaos, and that's probably because the people feel that their vote wasn't fairly counted. And we kind of tied that into some other places in the nation or in the world which had some problems with voting. and hopefully we will rebound from that. So, that's a little bit quick study on voting and elections as a senior government. Student, any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right. Ms. Harmon.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Herman, and I used to work for the school district as a para and coach, and I'm now at the Norton Correctional Facility in the PPC office, which is Policy, Procedure, and Compliance. I'm here tonight to present a check to the school district, and I want to kind of go back a little bit and tell you how this came about. So about 2 years ago, Mr. Wilson, Mr. McEwen, and Peggy Cox were out to the facility to attend a meeting. We have a group out there, an inmate group. It's a kind of a self-help group, and they do a fundraiser every year. They can choose where they want the proceeds to go. And that year, they elected to donate 100% of their proceeds to the school district. Something that's really important to these guys, and it meant a lot, was special education. And so they really wanted to find a way to give back to the community and feel like they were being contributing members of society. So we made that happen. Dustin, Phil, and Peggy came out. They attended a meeting, and we took a picture with the guys as they were presenting the check. And so it was really neat to see the special education classroom receive that money and be able to purchase tools and different devices that the kids could use throughout the year. So presently, we have a gentleman who was in that original group. The two of you met him while you were out there. And I want to read something to you. This was something that he stated to you while you were out there visiting. We can be defined by what brought us here, or we can be defined by making the change to become better. One of the things that we like to do out there is encourage these guys to keep themselves busy. It reduces idleness, keeps them out of trouble. And so this particular gentleman is an incredible artist. He paints, he draws. And so one of the things that we did with him this past year is he's been continuing to paint, continuing to draw. It was his wish, because he was so moved by you guys coming out and actually visiting the group. He wanted to donate the proceeds from his paintings, his drawings, back to the school district. So we said, well, let's make it happen. Let's do what we can. Special education is really important to him. So we said, we'll make it happen. As soon we put his paintings up for sale with proceeds to go to the school, and we waited and waited for one to sell. About a month ago, it sold. One of his paintings sold. So I'm here tonight to present a check, the proceeds going to the school designated for special education, and he wants to continue doing this. Every time he sells a painting, the proceeds will go to the special education department for the school district. We'll do junior high, Eisenhower, high school, wherever it needs to go, wherever it's most needed. One of the things that I always like to point out, and why it's so important, the amount of the check is small, but out there at the facility, when you've got somebody working 8 hours a day, whether it be a job or painting or drawing for 8 hours a day, their monetary, what they earn per day for a job is about 60 cents a day. So this check would be the equivalent of about 2 to 3 months worth of a salary for this gentleman if he were working in a job. So this is just the first of what I hope will be many. We're going to keep this going every time he sells a painting or a piece of artwork. I watched him work on this for weeks and weeks and weeks. And so it's my privilege to present it to you this evening, knowing that it's going to help these kids in the special education classrooms, whatever they could need. Let's make it happen. So, Leanna, you want me to present this to you, or what do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Sure.
All right.
Hey, how about?
Oh, oh, no.
Oh, look at them scatter.
I know.
Perfect.
It's weird, you're used to saying, say cheese or 1, 2, 3. No, that's fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa, is your phone number still the same?
It is, it is. And what we'll do is whenever we do sell one of his paintings, now that the district kind of knows where it's coming from, I'll just send those to you so they can go wherever they're most needed. I think before we just said, if it could be used towards assistive sensory tools and other specialty materials to benefit the children in those areas. This one happens to be designated to the junior high special education classroom. Hey, there we go. The next one we'll do Eisenhower and then high school and just kind of rotate. So that way, helping as many kids as possible, so.
And please extend our thank you.
I sure will. You know, this gentleman, like I said, I'd go up and visit him and watch him work on this, and the pride that he takes in his work. And as soon as I told him that we were good to go, that this money was going to go to help children, it was almost like you could just see it in his eyes how much it meant to him. He was in special education himself growing up, and you know, unfortunately, he'll be spending the rest of his life in prison. But you know, it's like you said, we can choose to try to better our lives. We can try to make good choices and still be able to contribute to good, positive causes. So I will definitely, you know, extend that to him. So thank you so much for letting me come talk to you this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
First reading of new board policy adoption.
Okay, I'm going to go through these, actually the kind of the short descriptive versions, because fortunately there aren't very many of them, and they mostly deal with the same topic, so it's pretty easy to figure out. These are actually from December. They sent these updates out in December, and of course a lot of board policies didn't cover everything when you're dealing with something like COVID and contagious disease and stuff. And like the first one deals with always been able to say, like, superintendents announce school closings for like snow and gas leak, whatever. But now it just added in health and safety concerns as being a reason. That's not really I don't think that huge a deal, but they added that wording into possible policy. When local health officials determine, this deals with employees coming back to work. They may return to work, and based on what the local officials say, that wasn't obviously in any guidelines either. Districts might have their own policy, but a lot of times most districts have been going off what the county health says, and as far as quarantines and things like that. So once again, and you can sure read through the actual policy itself. They're below down here. They just got rid of an old form. They actually got rid of something instead of just adding everything. This one deals with just a form dealing with compulsory attendance and when a student would sign out, exiting students, and it's just a form that they changed the form a little bit on that, so that's not really a huge deal to talk about. I'm not even sure how they actually changed it very much. Just where you can say that you actually held a counseling session, and because every time a student, you talk to them about, like, look, if you do not finish school, over your lifetime you miss out on this much, making this much money. And you go through it with their parents, with the student, you say, if you don't do this, and if you graduate from any kind of post-secondary education this, and 4 years this, and you go through the whole thing, like through your lifetime, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, And it's just kind of part of what they require on an exit of a student when they make that decision to leave school. Wellness plans, all of our stuff on our wellness plans, we keep up to date. I believe that was one of our first ones this year was when they came in and talked about wellness, Mr. Hawks and that group. And this is the same thing, deals with wellness plans. We're up to date on all those. Once again, another one on communicable diseases, changes the language a little bit. On isolation and quarantines in a different part, this is for students instead of employees. Anytime it's a J, it deals with students. So, G's are employees. This one we don't need, thank goodness. But in big schools and some small schools, depending on where you're at, it's just, you have to be careful about what you do when you talk about gangs and picking out clothing and saying it's gang affiliated. Back in the old days, that was kind of a deal. Some gangs wore certain colors and other gangs wore other colors. But you have to be very careful now because individual rights that just say it's gang clothing. We don't have to worry about that, so I don't recommend that I will not be recommending that we put that in. We don't need it. So just a few revisions, mostly nothing really major, just some small changes because there are changing times with COVID in particular this time, but any kind of communicable diseases like that allows a little more flexibility for schools and for the county. So next month I'll bring those back. Like I said, if you want to read through them, feel free. All the changes are red. And I'll bring them back next month and you can vote whether you want to approve them or not. Questions?
Okay, no questions? Item number 10, mask policy for the second semester at USD 211.
Okay, as we get into January here, our recommendation as far as administration and visiting with our staff, our health staff, we talked about in our administrative meeting the other day, is that we would like to continue at this moment with our policy just continue like it was in December. And then the board visit each month if we want to relax if we're going to be able to relax the policy, if we want to make it more strict, but have board input each month at the board meeting to decide what to do. Our recommendation for January is to leave it as it was in December, which was masks in the classrooms. Still had some breaks, but even if you're 6 foot apart, we're still wearing masks. I looked at the county site before I came this evening. The county's doing, knock on wood, pretty good right now. So we want to maintain that. This will be the second week now after Christmas. That's usually the fine line, and see how that goes. Hopefully it stays good. But our kids are used to it. I think the principals agree. Our kids are used to it. We're moving on. I mean, everyone's tired of wearing them, but they're used to doing it at school, getting their breaks, not wearing them in PE, in recess, and all the things. So our recommendation on that would be that the board continue that. When we get towards the end of the month, of course, CASIA rules might or might not change. What's the date on that?
January 28th.
28th. So we don't know. We would also recommend that we just continue to follow CASIA guidelines on activities and what they require on them. And we get into February and stuff, we're going to see start postseason activities, and we don't have, I'm not sure they have a complete idea what they're going to have, but we'll see what they tell us at the end of this month on activities and their guidance. I already mentioned I'd been in contact with county health about the vaccines, and we'll just wait until it's our turn, see what they have to say about that. So very few students in quarantine right now. We have some other bugs going around, as is usual in the winter. Stomach issues. I think the high school some stomach bugs and things, but otherwise starting off pretty good in that department. Any questions on that? don't know if it's an item necessarily to vote on, but if you want to do something, or you want to stay, whatever you want to do, just bring it to the board.
Do you want to have a motion or not, or?
Wouldn't you need some type of action since you brought it and you recommended it?
That'd be fine. I think that'd be good. That'd be clear cut then.
Any other motion?
I'll make a motion to continue the mask policy as it is currently, and also follow the recommendation of Acacia for activities unless our local health officials recommend stronger measures.
And revisit again in July.
And revisit again in February.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I don't think those should be linked. They ought to be separate, really. Because Casey, you're not going to have a choice, but the other you would, in my opinion.
So I have three different motions?
That's just
Or
my
two.
opinion.
Want me to rescind my motion?
It's up to you.
It's up to you.
I will rescind my motion.
Are you okay with the second?
Yeah.
We have new motions.
So we need two motions?
The motion to continue the mask policy as it is currently written and revisit the policy again in February.
Have a second? Any more discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-2. Do we have another motion?
Make a motion to follow the recommendation of Acacia for activities unless our local health officials recommend stronger measures, and revisit again in February.
Do we have a second? Yep. I'll second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-2. On to principal updates.
Just going to have the principals kind of give you a little bit of an update of how things start off this semester. Just real quick. Then later we'll talk personnel items in executive session.
I'll go first. I got good news and bad news. Good news is, we've had 3 new enrollments in January. The bad news is they're all seniors, so it really doesn't have any impact, positive financial impact on our district. So as we stand right now, freshmen are up 1, sophomores are up 1, juniors, I don't know what happened there. We had 4 people move out. I don't know what happened there, but we got 3 new seniors. So all in all, we are up by 1. We're standing at 186. I had talked to you previously about the JAG program, which is to build job skills in our at-risk students. I have since then spoken with Tara Vance, who feels like she will be able to find funding for this program because of the impact it has on local job development. And so I'm excited about that, and I think we're moving forward with a really good program there at no cost, well, no significant cost to our district. I also had another interesting phone call. This just dropped in my lap. I did nothing to get this, but I was like, yeah, sure, we'll do this. There is a program, a British Study Abroad program through ACS, which is the name of the school, an international school outside London. And Sharon and Mike McGee were alumni in 1969 from Norton. And their son, Sam, and his wife, Kristen, would like to provide the funding for one student to spend the 2-week internship there. It is not academically based, it is more about cultural awareness and the ability to take different perspectives. One of the things they try to do is have this be the last week in June, the first week in July in Britain, so that you have the perspective of 4th of July from Britain's point of view. 46 different countries send students to this time, so it's really about cultural immersion, different perspective taking, but they are going to provide the air transportation, they're going to provide help with the passport and visa, if they, well, they don't need visa. But anything they need as far as that goes, I apologize, I don't know who wants to talk to me so badly, my son. I apologize. And so, Sam and Kristen will pay for the scholarship and any incidental expenses while they're there. And their parents, Sharon and Mike, will pay for the airfare and the passport. All the family would have to do is get their child to, my guess most likely would be Denver International Airport, and then pick them up. And if they want them to buy anything that they don't need while they're over there, of course, that would be part of it. Their plan is for us to put together a application form for people who are interested, which of course would involve parents, because anytime you have international travel, I want the parents there and actively participating in it. So this is something they want to do yearly. So I was like, why would I say no to this? Yes, yes, absolutely. And all they're asking in return is to have a chance to speak to the student and know how it went. And so I'm like, seems fair. So,
So they don't host them or anything?
no, they say at the school. And the school, as it was described to me, and I've watched a couple videos about it, but they have an Olympic-sized track, they have a performing arts center, they've got several different little cafes. This is, I love my alma mater, but it is not Katie Dorms. These are nice. These are really, really nice. And it's all right there, and they go on different trips to experience different parts of England and different cultural experiences. So, yeah, I mean, they called and said, do I care if they offer this? Please do. Please do. And then that's it for my school, but I do just want to make you aware, I talked about this earlier this year, but the time has come. Hopefully, going to defend my dissertation proposal this month. So it's going to fall in between this board meeting and the next board meeting, and I'm most likely going to need Dina's signature and Mr. Wilson's signature to say it's okay for me to do the research. I'm looking at the impact of administration, the influence of administration on positive self-talk and reflection in bringing about change to teaching strategies. So it will be me working with my staff. And the basic format of it will be they'll answer a couple of reflection questions, and then they meet with me once a month. If we're not in person, then it would be via Zoom. And that's just really all there is to it. There's a couple surveys, but it's nothing really hugely different from what I'm doing now. But I will be gathering data, so I want you to be aware that that will be hopefully taking place yet this month. So if you have concerns or anything, want to know more about it, please do contact me. Okay, do you have any questions about my school? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Uh-huh.
you. Thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You going to England or anything, Mr. McKinn?
No.
Hard to top that, isn't it?
And I was going to tell you enrollment numbers too, and mine haven't gone the right direction either. Since we reported back in September, I have lost 5 and I've gained 3, so I'm down at 2 right now is what I reported. And there's actually one of those students, we lost them and gained them all in that time also. So they're back, they're here right now, so that's good. Our quarantine numbers right now are really low, which is, hooray, great. I will say there for a while, we had a lot of kids that were out there for a while, And, you know, teachers were, it was one thing to have a couple that maybe were doing the parent choice remote, and or one or two that were gone, and then all of a sudden you had this big bunch, and some teachers were getting frustrated, and we finally had, I don't know if it was an early release day or whatever, and it finally was like, well, it's so hard to remember to get them on because you're getting ready to teach, and then this kid asks you a question, and then this, and to kind of voice some frustration there, and it was kind of like a couple of teachers just said, well, this is what I do, and this is what helps me, and I can have Zoom do this for me, and all of a sudden it seems like just a lot of things just relaxed. It became a little bit easier for them to remember to get the kids on. The kids were doing a good job getting on, so I really think we turned a corner there at that one meeting when teachers just started talking to each other instead of being isolated in their own room and not communicating as to what's working and what's not. So I thought that was a really good meeting that we had that day. That really turned some things around. We also, after the initial just major changes, we've had some time to start working on getting back to doing some of the things that are MTSS and for reading that we typically have done, and just got out of the practice in the spring and with the changes in the fall. So with that, we started doing our 6-minute solution reads, which is working on reading fluency. And then we decided we were going to do a day where they do 6-minute solutions, and then they're also going to work on Moby Max and work on math one day. And then they're going to do a 6-minute solution, work on their English through Moby Max. And Moby Max has a diagnostic tool program that Keith got for us. Kendra Lowry had used it in the past, really liked it. Has a diagnostic tool, starts the kids at their level and just progresses them through as they get better. They move on to harder concepts as they go along. We also started working on, a few years ago, we went to a conference in Wichita and got to look at some things they were doing with the college and career competency framework, kind of in the SEL, social emotional learning strain, college and career competency framework. Self-regulation, it was really inexpensive, so people did some research, put some lessons together. I purchased those PDFs. You can use them at the school. We're going to work on self-regulation, and this isn't the self-regulation like get Johnny back into his right mind. This is more of the idea of how do you get kids and teach kids to make plans, monitor their plans, take control and adjust their plans, and then reflect on whether it worked or not. Because those interpersonal skills are really going to help them be better athletes, be better students, be better citizens in general, and it's something that our staff just decided as we were looking at some of those different competencies, we said, this is an area that would really help 7th and 8th graders to make a plan. If I didn't get my homework done, what is it I need to do? What kind of plan to put in place that I will eventually get to where I get my homework done? Or if I have a goal to be on the A-team basketball team, or whatever it happens to be. So we're hoping that as we get moving on that, it'll help them out. Scholars Bowl started practicing. We're only going to have an A team this year, just to keep numbers down as far as traveling to different schools. We will not have a geography B this year, unfortunately. They pretty much wiped those out completely nationwide. Junior high wrestling practice started. We have 15 boys out and 6 girls. So that girls team has grown there at the junior high level. And our first competition for that is at Oakley next week. Junior high basketball was a success. The boys won the tourney, defeated TMP in the finals, and the girls finished 4th. So those were all good, positive things that happened for junior high. Keisha, as Mr. Wilson mentioned.
It's only been 6 years.
I don't know where that came from. Keisha, as Mr. Wilson mentioned, rules are in place until the 28th. And one of the things that's got me a little bit nervous, and I think it's got Mr. Johnson a little bit nervous as well, we're supposed to host league wrestling, and that's on the 29th. So, there's some things involved in wrestling. Right now we can only have 112 participants, wrestlers. So that's one of the reasons why for the JR Durham, we had to cut down on some of the schools that were able to come in, make sure we stayed underneath that number. We ended up right at, thought it was going to be 107. And then you end up, this person doesn't show up, this person's sick, this person's whatever. We ended up right at 100 participants, I think is what it was. So for our league coming in with 12 different schools that all have wrestling, if they all just had 10 kids apiece, that'd be all over, that'd be 120 already. Plus then, they had reported that there are 30 girls involved in wrestling over the MCL this year. So if you're trying to do something with girls as well, we're going to be well over that number of 112. So we kind of been thinking about if we can host maybe boys here, girls there, still have to pull some of the weights from the boys over maybe to the East Campus. It's just, it ends up being a much bigger process trying to have two venues, trying to keep it under 112. Then we also found out that some of the league wrestling coaches supposedly are concerned because Keisha changed the qualifying tournament so much when it comes to state wrestling. In the past, you had regionals, place in the top 4, you go to state. Now they've gone and starting February 6th, if you haven't seen this, February 6th is districts, in which they're trying to keep those numbers under 112. We go to Phillipsburg. The next week is what they are calling regionals. We don't know for sure where we're going, but we know which other district we're competing against. So, and they qualify the top 4 out of the districts, top 4 out of the regionals. Then you go to sub-state, which sub-state's going to take up basically everywhere from Beloit clear down to, say, Cheney, that area, and the rest of the state west. We don't know where we're going yet with that. And then Fort will qualify out of there for a one-day state tournament in Hayes on the Saturday that we would have expected state wrestling. So all those things are just changes and changes and changes that you're trying to.
And that doesn't even mention the girls' qualifying process, which is one day before or after each one of those.
Yeah.
So is it going to be 8? Only 8 go to Hazen?
Yes.
So just 2 sub-states?
Yep. They want to get it done in one day, I'm pretty sure, and they also want to try to keep those numbers at 112. And we still don't know what they're going to do as far as crowd is concerned. You know,
What's a typical, is 112 everybody in the state or just our capacity?
112 wrestlers at any competition
So
venue.
it has nothing to do with our venue?
No.
Just,
No, nothing to do with ours. We'll also, league basketball is coming up, not this week, but next week. They'll seed that tournament on Wednesday, 2 days from now. That's changed as well. It was going to change already because we're in the 12th school. Now it's also changed because they're trying to keep schools separate a little bit more. So on the backside games, girls are going to be at Plainville. The boys are going to be at Stockton. So if you have to play in the Saturday backside playing games, will be 2 different places. And then if you happen to play in the backside on that Thursday, same thing. Girls at, I was going to keep it straight, girls at Plainville, boys at Stockton. Then for the finals, which would be on the Friday and the Saturday, everybody involved, they're going to go with Ellis and Trigo. Trigo was supposed to be the host, and you know, split them up. So boys will be at Ellis, and the girls will be at Trigo. So the world of activities is just constantly evolving and changing, and a little bit different plans as we go along. So I think those are the main points that I wanted to express to you. So any questions for me?
Can you write that all down for us?
Can you start over?
What was that you said? Yeah.
A lot of changes. So. Jared Durham went very well, though. I mean, it was different, but it was a good day, and I think table workers, I think Kim will attest to. It's a lot easier when there wasn't as much noise and you could hear the official, and if you happened to put something wrong on the score, nobody got all upset because the coaches weren't that concerned because they knew they'd get it straightened out and they weren't fired up. And there weren't people right behind you yelling in your ear and all those kind of things. So as far as all that went, it was really smooth for them. Had a lot of great help getting it run off.
Thank you.
All right, let's get to some simple things like the elementary school.
Yeah.
Very complex what they're doing, and it's exciting about going to. Do they need sponsors for that?
I
You
already
probably already
asked,
volunteered.
and I asked if my senior son could still qualify even though he wouldn't be a student next year, but they said no.
Our transition from remote back to building has went well. We talked about that last month. Went well. Appreciate the parents who worked with us on this, that the ones that stayed at home that had the remote kids. They talked to us about it, and they were very receptive, and so we appreciate those parents who helped make that transition at the elementary. This week we're doing CDMs at the school. We're testing our kids, and then we'll take that information from those tests this week, and our leadership team will put some stuff together on how we can work with some of those kids who have been identified. I'm trying to put that in simple terms, but we do this 3 times a year. We do it at the beginning, and we do the second round now, and then we do the third round at the end of the year. Helps us group kids who need to be grouped according to ability and stuff. So we're working on that right now. In service next week, I'm really proud of the people that we have in our district, because we're doing in-service next week, and we're using our own staff to present the in-service activities to the other staff. And I will tell you something, one of the hardest things it is for a teacher is to get up in front of their own peers and present information. And yet we have staff that's willing to do that time and time again. That's hard to do. It's easier to be a teacher to go to another district and present to a group of teachers there. But to get in front of your own peers and do that, and all 3 of us have asked our own staff members to do that in our buildings. And so we're putting our in-service together on Monday using our own people. And I think that's a good shout out to our people who say, yep, we can do that. And they have we're going to do resilience training, and then at the Eisenhower for part of the morning, and then we're going to do some dyslexia training, continue that on. We've been doing those 2 things for the year, and we're going to continue that. So shout out to those people for that. You met our student teacher. I think that's important. I think it's our job, part of our job, our role as a school system is to bring young people up in the system and say, they need to have a place to go and get that first opportunity to be in the front of a classroom, right? You just don't throw somebody in there. We have had student teachers in the past. I'm a strong advocate for having student teachers in our school, because I think we have a good product in our buildings and stuff. And Ms. Schultz is an exceptional teacher, and she's going to help out in every way possible. So I am an advocate for student teaching. I think we should continue to do that as a district, and I know she's going to pick up a lot as a student teacher. Unfortunately, over Christmas, we too have lost some students. Bona fide moves, no issues. They just moved to different places. I think we lost 6. We did gain 1, but our numbers will be down a little bit too in respect to that. Good numbers. Kindergarten, we started that process of identifying kindergartners for next year. I think we're at 52 right now, so that's good. Anytime, the target number, guys, is 50. Okay, each year. If we get above 50, we're doing. I think that's healthy for our community if we've got 50 kindergarten students out there, right? So I think we're at 52 right now. I will tell you, our gym, is being used in January and February every night of the week after school for basketball. I know we'll present a coach for our 5th and 6th grade intramural boys, but we also have a number of rec teams that are using our gym every night, Monday through Friday. Our gym is used from 3:30 to 6:30. So I think that says that there was a need to have another gym way back when that bond issue was proposed. Last thing, I'll be talking to you guys maybe next month or the month after about summer school. Don't know about the direction we want to do with that. Kind of based on some other discussions that's going to be going on where we're at with summer school. So we're not going to talk about that tonight, but we will be doing that in the future. And field trips, I got to figure out what we're going to do on field trips. You heard he's cutting back on things, they're cutting back on things. We've spent the whole first semester, really being careful what we do. We don't want to blow it at the end of the year. So if we don't do field trips like we've done in the past, we may come up with some alternatives. But I will tell you, it's great to be back in school with our kids after the break. And every day we are very, very appreciative of it. And so it's so important that we do everything we can to keep our little ones in the building. So that's all I got. And I hope somebody had a time on that, because I have always been the one the longest, and I am by far the shortest this time. So you guys have anything for me? It's just great to be back, guys. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, reports to the board. We didn't meet. We meet tomorrow morning. Your turn.
For me. All right. The NCK SEC board met on Monday, December 21st at 7:30. The administrators have been completing observations, evaluations, and networking through Region 8 meetings. New Frontier Community of Practice, KSDE quarterly meeting and directors conference calls. Shared grieving, joined via Zoom with KSB Women Connecting with Women. Special education funding was a main topic on both the director's call and Region 8 meetings. The offices were closed December 23rd through January 3rd for holidays. Mrs. Rhea, is it Rhea or Rhea? I never know. She will be working 3 days a week now in January for hours she cut down. Wes Topol and Shared Grieving are scheduled to participate in a virtual interview day with school psychologist students from the University of Nebraska-Kearney. Deb informed the board of preliminary December 1 headcount of 673 students, 31 gifted and 642 IDEA. Wes Topol put in his resignation for June. I think you guys all read about that. The director search will be posted. It should be posted already. It was supposed to be posted immediately on the Kansas Educator job site. Superintendents Lisa Gehring, Mike Bauer, and Larry, is it Lysau? Will screen applicants to be considered for that position. The next meeting will be next Monday, January 18th at 7:30.
We don't meet for 2 more weeks.
All right. Discuss the reduction in force plan.
Okay, I'll go over some information with you here. A reminder that we talked before about we talked about how we got to this place, this spot, and then we talked about looking at administration getting together, looking at areas that might have extra staff or staff more compared to other areas, and then we would bring to you a list of potential areas where we could reduce staff. Now, we offer probably more areas than we need, but we offered several areas to look at. So, this is areas that we're talking about. First of all, over here, we're looking at areas that could be reduced district-wide staff, and by that we mean in areas where we teach a subject throughout the district. So if it's art or if it's music, that's kind of what we're talking about district-wide. Or if it's dealing with the library or media services, that's district-wide. These others are either elementary or high school, junior high. Now we have 7 down here. At this time, we do not need to reduce 7 positions, but these are just areas to choose from. It doesn't mean all of them are chosen, or the board might decide to go a completely different direction. So, staffing in some of these areas, like we have 3 music staff, this time 7-12 area. Math, we have 4, which is stunning that we actually have several math teachers for just 7-12. Most of the time you would say, well, that's PE. We do not have any extra PE teachers, really. Now, some of these people do other things, so they teach math is their main area, but they may do other things. Business, 4 staff, once again. Some of them may teach a couple of hours or partly different things. So, those are 2 areas at the 7-12 level. Obviously, elementary classroom, some potential for reductions there as the numbers at the elementary go down a little bit. Some district-wide positions. Art is a possibility. We don't want to pick on just fine arts areas. Ways we looked at this a little bit is we looked at some class numbers, particularly at the secondary level. Vocal music, and this is just this year's, so it's not a 3-year average or anything like that. This is just this year's, just to give you an idea of numbers. This is 912 vocal this year. They've been higher than that in the past, there's no doubt about that. 7th, 8th grade vocal this year. 912 band this year. 7th and 8th grade band. High school art numbers, that's for 6 class periods. And junior high art numbers. And those are different teachers. Okay? So, these are areas that we would recommend that we look at as far as the areas, and then report back to the board next month. Look at what the board might want to do. The board can take these recommendations, they can say, look at these, we could come back by that time and have different recommendations in a month that are a little bit different. Depends on how things change in the meantime. So, what we would say is, what we need to do is follow our process with our negotiated agreement is the board would need to say, okay, we approve to look in these areas. And so we would need a kind of a motion for that when we get finished here today. Unless you want to say, look somewhere else and then tell us where you would like us to look, we'd be glad to do that as well. So next month we would come back with more specific recommendations to the board. And more specific recommendations means individuals. And that would be executive session. That will not be an open session. Okay? Then in March, it would be best if we had our final decisions in March, so that we can if staff has to be let go, we need to let them know. And also by March gives us the time that if we have some retirements or resignations, there's room to shuffle and move things around. Okay? So that still gives us a couple of months of time, and it gets more towards the time when people start thinking about those things. And if a staff member is thinking about moving somewhere else, now's the time to start thinking about that. So this is looking at this the way is looking at it where there was no other movement except by reduction. So this is the worst case scenario, and it would not be 7 positions. Okay. Questions? So if they're not questions, then I need, if the board wants to accept these recommendations as this potential recommendations to look at, to have us move forward looking at these areas, or tell us to look somewhere else.
I'm ready to move forward.
We have a motion by Craig, second by Sean, to move forward with these areas to look at. No discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Which way are you voting?
I was in favor.
Okay. Motion carried 7-0. A resolution to move the election of officers to the July meeting and set the dates of the board meeting in July.
And this happens because the legislature moved elections, board elections to the fall, like all other elections, instead of staying in the spring. So traditionally, we've always moved into July with the fiscal year.
Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to move election,
Two different ones,
Two
okay.
different motions, yeah.
make a motion to approve the resolution to move election of officers to July meeting.
You have a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion? I second it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Motion to set the board meeting, or to set the dates of board meetings.
Make a motion to approve the resolution to establish, wrong one. Establish, yeah, those are the same one, sorry. Set meeting dates of BOE meetings to July.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0.
Did you have those?
I don't have those. You have those printed out.
14.1, 14.2. Just reading the second one, it's the same as the other one.
Just sign it.
Confusing myself.
The first one was on principal.
Okay.
Took my pen.
All right, agenda item number 15, executive session for non-elected personnel. How long for the first
I'll
one?
do 15. Instead of getting out there in 5 minutes.
I move we go into executive session to discuss personnel and personnel assignments as protected by the KOMA, to return to the open meeting at 9:05 to include the superintendent and the 3 building principals. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. All those opposed? Motion carried 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
You can see, I found the
Mr.
scoring.
Johnson, thank you for all the nice talks that we have after school every day.
With your daughter?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, you want to?
We're being
Lots of debates.
And
Right.
what's the House amendment to stop using brothers and sisters and father and mother? Which one was that? That was one of the first two.
That was, they have to adopt the house.
Okay, are there any motions to be made from executive session? We on to personnel?
I think so.
Do we need,
You can have another one, have another one.
do we need another one? One yes, one no. Do we need a one? You need a shot, you need one, Charlie? Okay. Personnel actions. Anybody want to make a motion? I move we accept the resignation of Phil Wilson as superintendent effective June 30th.
June 30th.
June 30th, 2021. Thanks for his 6 years of service to USD 211 for the purposes of retirement.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. I move to nominate Elizabeth Albright as high school secretary and Colin Bailey as 5th and 6th grade boys basketball.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay. Superintendent search.
Okay, you need to be thinking about that pretty quick. I did email KSB because they do statewide. Southwest Plains used to do searches, but I don't know if they do anymore or not, and probably some other co-ops do, but it costs a little bit. KSB is also, I mean, they do all the work. And I think in the superintendent case, that's something you want to look at. So I included some of the materials in there, and it's just a kind of, I almost started saying a propaganda sheet, but it really kind of is. 17-1 there, it's just their, what they do. Some of you have been through it before when I came, so you know how they do that. They usually come in the community, they meet with either teachers or community members, see what they're looking for. They meet with the board, what are you looking for? That kind of stuff. Then they advertise it, the position, they gather the applications, the applicants. They usually, if they have several applicants, they have some area superintendents help filter out the obviously not ones unless they have some specific directions from the board. They're trying to follow what the board's wanting, so then they narrow it down to 3 to 5 or whatever the board says they would like to interview, and then you bring those in. And I know you worked with Gary before. He's usually out in western Kansas. I would say if you went with KASB, would be ask for Gary, because I think he'd do the best job for out here. They do charge for our size school, it's $4,000 plus mileage, which mileage is always a ways to Norton. So, but they don't have anyone assigned to western Kansas anyway. Gary's probably as close as anyone, and he's not close. Lions. But I think you'd get a better list of candidates through KASB probably. But you can do it any way you sure want to.
Have we posted it already?
No.
Well, we post it tomorrow.
No. Well, if you say you want to go with KASB, I will contact KASB for you and say you want to use them, and then they will be back in touch with us, and then they will set up to post it. I don't know, because they'll probably want to talk to what's the closing date, all those things for applications and all that kind of stuff. So they want to know all that stuff.
How many vacancies are out there now, do you know?
There are, last I saw there was like 12 or 15, but a lot of them were 1As, little schools. They always try to get out there first because they have a harder time getting candidates. I saw another school our size, one other school our size for sure.
What's this posted on? Where do you look?
There's a statewide site that probably has all of them on it. That's the Kansas State site. And then KASB has it on their website. They're listed on their website. They must have there too.
Well, we probably better get moving so we're not behind.
Some, you know, it's kind of a toss-up. Some do it, they start, they put them up over Christmas, come back, and some, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of a, either time now is good, it's not March or April or something, that's what you don't want to have. It's late. It's that late. But anytime from December to February, you're fine. But you would need to make a motion to approve that you want it to be used then.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we move KASB to help fund the superintendent.
Motion to hire KASB to help with the superintendent search. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Anything else to come before the board? We are adjourned.
I need to buy you a gavel.
I know. I would love to have it.
I'm gonna buy you a gavel.
Bring it next week.
I will stay in touch with you.
Nancy Pelosi has one.
I'm saying,
And you,
she's got one.
I know.
after the 24th, I won't be here. So,
Right.
but I'll help get started.
Nancy? Fancy Nancy?
See if I can get Gary, sure Gary will.